If you're anything like me, then you've battled with low self-esteem, feelings of not being good enough, comparing yourself to others, procrastination, perfectionism, fear of life, fear of going for your dreams. You struggled with happiness, anxiety, and potentially even depression. If that sounds like you, then we've got many things in common. And I wanted to share in this video a deeply personal story about a transformative, powerful therapy session in Italy, that a chance session that completely and radically changed my life. So roughly around 2013, 2014, I was actually off sick from my 9 to 5. At the time, I wasn't feeling very well. And I'd had a couple of days off. And it was a Sunday morning and the sun was shining and it was just a beautiful day. And I was kind of getting over this bug. So I decided to take myself for a walk into town. It was sort of 20-minute walk. I wanted to get some fresh air. And I got into town, I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. And for some reason, I just thought I'd go to Waterstones, a bookstore. And I wandered in and I went upstairs, up the escalator, to a section in the corner of the top floor that used to have IT books. I don't know why. I was never a big reader, to be honest, around that time. And I worked in IT, so I just thought, well, I don't know, wasn't going to buy anything. I just instinctively went to that corner. But the IT section had been moved and it had been replaced by the self-help section. Now, I'd never read a self-help book in my life. And as I kind of skimmed or scanned across these books, there were little handwritten labels, Waterstones reviews. I mean, literally just tiny, just a few lines. And there was one that just screamed out at me. And I saw the black spine of the book and the words just jumped. And the book was called Fuck It, The Ultimate Spiritual Way, by a guy called John C. Parkin. And I picked up the book and I just, again, randomly, instinctively opened it up and I read this page, the first page, and I was, wow, I need to read this book. And I purchased the book and I went home and I read that book in 2 days, literally. And it was the first book I'd fully read since, I think, Roald Dahl, Danny the Champion of the World, when I was about 11. And it set me off on this journey into self-help, into healing. I wish I could show you a copy of the book. I'll put a link to it if you're interested in the description below. I gave my book away to a friend who I believe then gave it to his ex-girlfriend. So it's quite beautiful, actually. I wonder where that book is now. And my partner bought another copy and then she gave it away as a birthday present. So yeah, I'll drop a link in the description below if you want to check it out. But I'd resolved, after reading that book, I'd resolved that I really wanted to meet John C. Parkin, the author. So I did a little bit of research and I saw that he did run retreats, primarily in Italy where they lived at the time. And then it wasn't for a few years that finally, I think it was 2017, I reached out to, not John, but on their website, the person that dealt with this stuff, and I booked in on a retreat. And I looked at the list of retreats that they were running, and there was one called Fuck It, Sort Stress and Anxiety. And I thought, at the time, I'd been doing a lot of meditation and mindfulness off the back of this book. I thought, I don't feel particularly stressed and anxious, but I want to meet John. I'll get to have a week in Italy. Why the hell not? So I booked it and I went in the June, I believe, in 2017. But we started the sessions. We were in a beautiful 17th century building, a hotel. It was absolutely stunning, in a place called Pesaro. The Italians will kill me for butchering it. Pesaro, overlooking the Adriatic. And we turned up, and it may have been on the first day, John introduced his wife. Now, his wife, I knew had helped him write the book, but being brutally honest, I didn't really know who she was, and John was the person I wanted to learn from and experience the retreat with, the week. And Gaia was there, and they kind of explained that they used to teach together quite a lot, but because she was focusing on her work, she was more of a therapist, they hadn't. So she was going to do a few sessions. Now, she ended up staying for the entire week, which turned out to be the most incredible thing that probably could have happened to me and for me in my adult life. she decided to offer some week-long, that'll be a long session. She decided to offer to everyone an hour-long therapy session with her. So we had the piece of paper, and I've had therapy before. I had CBT in my 20s. Now, my thoughts, I've got quite strong opinions on CBT. CBT, for anyone that doesn't know, is cognitive behavioral therapy, which primarily looks at the behavior. Now, CBT for me did not work at all. I basically turned up, they asked me questions which were heady, which were logic, and I pretty much, I lied. I mean, I know it sounds like I did myself a disservice, but it just wasn't working for me. You know, oh, how do you rate that feeling today on a scale of 1 to 10? Yeah, whatever. Because the problem is with CBT, or for me anyway, and for many others, it looks at the behavior. It doesn't look at what caused the behavior. The behavior is the adaptive thing that we do to protect ourselves, to numb. We develop these behaviors, which as adults are generally quite destructive. I know I've taken a bit of a side path, but I feel it's relevant. And if we only look at the behaviors, then we never heal. I'm doing this because this is body nervous system stuff. We never heal the true pain. We're only looking at the behavior. You need to address the pain in the nervous system to remove, to deal with, to resolve the behavior. And I had some destructive behaviors in my 20s, and it didn't work. So anyway, I decided that I'll go for a session with Gaia. I didn't know much about her work. I knew it wasn't CBT. It was deeper. It was more body work. She has a beautiful blend of modalities. So it was going to be an experience. And I remember I was quite nervous, but she told me where to meet her. And it was in this room, part of the hotel. I need another drink for this bit. I feel like it's going to be a long video. Interesting. I'm getting, talking about nervous system and body, I'm getting quite shaky and nervous. The emotion already is coming. Okay. So, yeah, it was in, the hotel was in two parts where there was the old 17th century buildings, and then there was the newer part of the hotel. Getting warm as well. And we were in the older 17th century part. And I walked in and we said hello. And she offered me a seat. Now she said, and at the time I thought, that what a strange thing. But now I realise this is so powerful, because we rarely get to check in with ourselves and make these sorts of decisions. She was sat down on a wooden chair, and there was another chair facing her. So naturally, you'd sit down having a therapy session and face each other. And she invited me to sit down, and she said, just check how you want to sit, where you want to sit. And there was a window to my left, and it overlooked the Adriatic, and I just instinctively, something in me wanted to not face her. Maybe it was shame, maybe it was fear, but she'd given me the option. I was like, okay, and I sat and faced out the window. And we started the session, and what transpired, I can now logically explain, but at the time, when it finished, I had no words for it, because I'd never experienced anything like it. There were parts where there were a lot of tears, there were a lot of pain, there was a lot of, oh my God, I feel free and at peace, and then something else would come. This work is like peeling the layer of an onion. You peel away the top layer, and then something more painful is underneath, and you work through that, and something more painful again will come. And at one point I remember being, because there's a level of energetic work, it's intuitive. You just have to trust whatever comes. It might not make sense, but you just trust what comes up for you. And it's not heady, as I said, it's not CBT. We're not talking about my past. Oh, what happened? It's kind of, if you think about more questions to the body, what are you feeling now? When you say those words, what's your experience? So we're dealing with nervous system, trapped emotions and suppressed emotions that need to be kind of looked after and cared for and felt, because we couldn't feel them when we were younger. And at one point, from nowhere, I just had this image that I could see a small boy, and it was on the end of a pier. He was kind of stood at the end of the pier, and said this to Guy, I can see a small boy, and she asked, what age is this boy? And I said, oh, 7. And she said, do you want to do anything? Do you want to speak to the boy? Do you want to do anything? And I said, yeah. And I pictured myself walking up to him, and it was me as a 7-year-old boy. And I remember, because my family always called me Jonathan, I'm John now. And I said, it's me, it's 7-year-old Jonathan. And she said, do you want to say anything or do anything? And I just had this urge to grab him, to put my arms around him, to hold him and say everything's going to be okay, and just say, I'm so sorry. For everything, for not being able to protect him, for not being able to save him, for not being there for him. And I can feel it now, and just being able to do that, because as an adult, as a child, we're quite helpless to what happens to us. But as an adult, we have capacity, we have autonomy. And just the act of doing that and being able to say that to him released, I felt it then, just released this emotion, this energy. And all of a sudden I just felt, and so much more happened in that session, in the hour that we had together. But I remember at the end of it, I need more tea. At the end of it, I'd never felt anything like it. I described it as, you know, when you see a spider in the sink or in the bath, and the spider's desperately clawing to get purchase, and it just keeps slipping. My mind felt like that. My mind couldn't comprehend, because I've always been quite a heady person historically, couldn't comprehend what had happened. Now, obviously, what had happened is my nervous system had released a hell of a lot of energy and suppressed emotions and repressed emotions, and emotions that weren't allowed to feel, and emotions I didn't know how to express in such a short time. It gave me such an amount of peace and calm and quiet that my brain mentally couldn't work it. It was trying to work out what the hell had happened, and it was like a spider in the sink or in a jar trying to escape. My brain was like, what's happened? And I had to just allow it. And I remember walking out of that room, and obviously, unfortunately, this sort of work does tend to attract primarily women. I think there was only one other guy on the retreat. I think he was there because his girlfriend wanted him to be there. And they happened to be getting ready for dinner. They were sat outside, and they looked at me and they were like, what the hell did you two get up to in that room? Because I was so much lighter and taller and shoulders back. It was just an incredible transformation. Now, the reason I wanted to share this story with you is because, as I mentioned at the start of this video, right at the beginning, if you are like me and you have struggled with low self-esteem, confidence, not feeling good enough, toxic guilt, shame, depression, then unfortunately, and you have asked for help, then generally what you'll be given is CBT or another kind of top-down therapy that focuses on the mind, on the brain. And I don't want to slam that. There are occasions where it's useful, but for the emotions and struggles, for developmental trauma reasons, it's just no good. It doesn't cut the mustard. It won't get to the root issue of your struggles, of your problems. And I want to share it because I've been there, and I know. And if you have had those kind of sessions, then you'll just give up on it. You'll think, oh, what's the point? But there are other therapies out there that really do work, that are really powerful. And I liken it to, I had an old Toyota MR2 14, 15 years ago. And it was about an 18-year-old car, and it was knackered. And the coolant would always leak out of the radiator. There was a leak in the radiator. So what did I do to fix the radiator? I just top it up with water every now and again. And I think these traditional therapies are like that. They kind of look at the problem, leaky radiator. Well, what do we need to do? Well, we need to pour water in, but it still will leak. And that's top-down therapy, focusing on the mind. Whereas therapies that Guy is trained in and I'm trained in now, so NAM, Neuroaffective Relational Model, EMDR, somatics, any kind of body work or trauma-informed work actually looks at the nervous system, so bottom up, and then bottom up informs top down. This hopefully is making sense, but the body informs the mind. The mind is like, oh, okay, yeah, and then it can form new neural pathways. So it fixes the radiator in the broken MR2, so it doesn't leak anymore. And obviously, depending on how severe the trauma is, it takes longer. But it is exceptionally powerful. So what I'm hoping that you get from this video, especially if you have only tried traditional therapies, is that there are other modalities out there. So yeah, don't give up. I hope that's been useful. If any of it resonates with you, then please, I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. If you've got any questions about any of this as well, please let me know and I'll do my best to answer them. And if you are interested in any of my other videos, if this has resonated or you're curious about what it is that I do or my journey or my whatever, then please, I invite you to subscribe. Have a beautiful day. Big love, John.